Oh, let's do it. Yeah, let's do this. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. This TFTC one going live can only be described as a Monday, baby. It is a Monday. We are going to continue on with our course, hopefully. Let me just open up the window to make sure that we are looking good. Circular paths and everything else is fine. So this is me. I've literally just finished work. This is me continuing on with my educational journey, which you guys obviously want to come and join along if you so wish. This is Blue Prism RPA. I am on the Blue Prism Association Developer course, if you will. This is the overall course here. So you can see here we've got, we are right at the start of this course. There's not a lot we can do about that. We are...
Sorry, can you call my phone? I have no idea where it is.
Okay. Uno momento.
I thought it was upstairs charging, but it isn't.
I don't know. One sec, I need to find you on my phone list. Contacts. There we go. Right, it's calling. Professional streamer. Well, that's calling you now, yeah?
Oh, please don't have it put it on silent.
Probably. Don't know. Always when you hit the go live button, isn't it? Always when you hit the go live button. So we are on the Blue Prism Foundation training at the moment. As you can see, this is about 50 hours long, this particular section. And then after that was these are then
Mum put this on.
okay. These are then broken down into process templates. That's another hour and 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour there, 1 minute, 1 hour 30 for the certification. So this is where we are. So we're going to continue where we left off. So we're on the foundation course itself. Even though it says I've completed the foundation course, which I have in theory, what I didn't do was make it as far as the consolidated test. So if we look at the content down here, there's a consolidation exercise here. I didn't get that far. We blatted through yesterday Business Objects and Object Studios, which means we are now into exception management. Again, this is kind of important, so we need to get focus on this. In fact, these next three, 7, 8 and 9 are absolutely vital. These three are vital. It was the work queues that defeated me last time, I think, on the consolidation exercise. So without that further ado, I think we just kind of crack on, get stuck in, and then see where we go from there. So let's do it.
Machine works.
Right, let's reset that. And then exception. So exception is the best way to describe an exception. Is an exception is if something doesn't function as it's kind of supposed to do. If it doesn't work, then it throws an exception.
In section 7, you will be introduced to exception management before exploring the practicalities in sections 8 and 9. To help you visualize exception cases, it may help to think of a Blue Prism process as a machine that is used to do a specific job over and over again. Without concerning yourself how this machine works, you can see that items are fed into one end of the machine and results come out at the other end. In an ideal world, this machine would be able to do all of its work without encountering any difficulties. Though focusing only on the happy path is not sufficient to ensure smooth operation, and the unhappy path must also be considered.
The unhappy path.
In practice, the machine will occasionally encounter problems, preventing some items from making it all the way through to completion. These unfinished cases will require the attention of a human being in order to be resolved. The occurrence of unexpected errors within a process or business object are called exceptions, and the procedure for dealing with these is known as exception handling.
Or the unhappy path. This is what I was saying yesterday, that these, you could build a straight RPA that goes straight down and runs the happy path. But you also then need to build the section of the RPA for the unhappy path, if you like. And the unhappy path can be just as complicated as the happy path.
Exceptions are handled within a process or business object, but managed within the work queues area of Blue Prism. You'll learn about both of these over the coming sections.
Fair enough. Still got me cold. The whole thing will not disappear. Where are we? We are here.
Work queue has been worked.
Right, let's whip this one back here. There we go.
It is possible to configure a process or business object so that it is capable of capturing and handling errors. Which are known as exceptions. This is important as it enables the digital worker to pass the exception case out for manual review and continue processing the workload without interruption. The logic that is used to cater for exceptions is known as exception handling. Exception handling is a critical part of any Blue Prism solution and should be designed with the same level of care afforded to the other parts of a solution. In this next section, you will learn about two main types of exception. You will also be introduced to work queues and methods for extracting exception information for manual review. There are two fundamental groups into which exception types can be categorized: system exceptions and business exceptions. However, it is possible to define an attribute as many additional exception types as required, should further distinction become necessary. System exceptions are application-based problems, and these occur when Blue Prism recognizes the application isn't behaving as expected. For example, when an application that is required by a Blue Prism process fails to launch, or when an element within an application window can't be identified on screen. Business exceptions are rules-based problems and occur when Blue Prism reacts to data. For example, when an incorrect user ID is transmitted to a Blue Prism process, or when a claim amount exceeds a specified limit.
Okay.
In Control Room, each item is processed one after the other in a work queue, which results in each item being marked as either complete or as an exception. All items marked as an exception must then be reviewed by a person before they can be completed.
So that's clever. So it's got to start. So you've got your loop here, look, but you've got your continuation loop here. So what happens is the happy path. So the happy path, this is this, where it continues to go around until it's out of items. Got item no end. Yes, subpage, 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 and that's in a block. I think you cover blocks after. But if it throws an exception, which is here, which is a recovery, So once the exception is thrown, the recover then goes into mark that particular item as an exception, hence there, and then it hits the resume. That's clever. I get it.
When designing a Blue Prism solution, an escape route for exception items must be considered, including how such items should be transferred for manual review.
Clever.
An example of which could include an automated email that sends the details of the exception item to a specified inbox as soon as it has been processed, or waiting until the entire work queue has been worked before collating all of the exception items into a specified file, saved to a drive shared by the manual team.
I mean, that probably makes more sense to me than an email. But again, I think it depends on the environment you're in. Oh, it's just a test. I really like. So that exception management, I like. Where's the slide overview? I like that diagram there. I do like that diagram there, actually. It's not bad at all. Right, let's start the main part of the exceptions then, I suppose. This is where it's going to get interesting. This is where we start to build in our own exceptions. Okay. Good day at school, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Good. Alright, let's bring it on over. Video is good. Still got me cold, man. It won't go.
In Section 8, you will learn about the key concepts associated with exception handling and about best practice for building exception handling logic into processes and business objects. Errors may occur at any point within a Blue Prism solution, so ensuring comprehensive exception handling measures are in place means that processes can keep running in the event of any such errors. To achieve this, it's important to know how to identify when errors may be likely to occur and how they should be handled when they do.
Yeah.
Exception handling can be built into process diagrams and business objects via the use of new stages that you will be introduced to in this section.
Okay. Recover and resume. Right, let's see how this wants us to do this. So, a recovery mode. That's a video, okay. It goes back 4 minutes, turn the sound up. Let's do it. Swear to God, I haven't coughed all day. The minute you go live. Damn. How's your day been, Robin?
If left unhandled, an exception will travel up through the process to the main page.
Yeah.
And cause the session to terminate. This is known as exception bubbling. The first step to managing exception bubbling and enabling the session to continue in the event of an exception is to build a recovery mode into the process solution, the key elements of which are recover and resume, which work together to salvage and move on from an exception. In this next activity, you will create a new business object that calculates the average score of a competitor across a series of races by building some simple calculation logic that uses values within data items. You will then induce an error that triggers an exception by entering an unviable value into one of the data items.
Nice.
Finally, you will add a recover and resume stage to your object diagram to catch the exception.
Why are you shaking?
For this activity, you will be working in Object Studio. First, create a new business object and set up the data items and calculation stage.
New object is racer score. So was that, yeah, it was new object, wasn't it? So let's go to Blue Prism. Let's just match that. So a new object. Create object was racer score. To calculate the score of races. Finish. Right, let's open up that bad boy, go back to the video, and then see where we're going. Action
Add
1.
3 data items with number data type. 2 for the race scores,
Race score 1. Race score 2.
and 1 for the number of races. The number of races data item will contain a deliberate error, an initial value of 0. This
So 3 data items. He did set it as numbers, didn't he? Let's just go back, go back, go back. There we go. There we go. Number, yeah. So it's just race score 1. Okay, fair enough. Let me just move that out of the way. Oh, sorry, we're on action 1, aren't we? Let me just move that out of the way. Data items. Where are you, data item? 1, 2, and 3. So data item was, did you say race score 1? Number. Initial value was 10, I think. God dang it, man. Race score 2, number 25. Okay, we'll do that. Race score 2. Data type was a number, initial value was 25. Okay, and then the third one was, he still set it as a number though, didn't he? But he put the initial value as 0, I think. I can't remember what he called it. Let's go and have a look.
and 1 for the number of races.
Oh, number of races. Yeah,
The
number of
number-
races. There we go. Number of races. No, it's a number. What is that? Set the password. Number and we set to 0. There you go.
Of races data item will contain a deliberate error, an initial value of 0. This will be recognized as an exception, as calculation stages cannot divide number values by 0. Add a calculation stage that adds the 2 race scores together and divides the result by the number of races.
So race score 1 and race score 2 divide by number of races. Let's see if we can do that. That's good practice, I think. Calculation stage, so let's just dump that in there, and then what we'll do is calculation stage should be numbers. Race score 1 add race score 2. Divide by number of races. Validate. The following errors occurred at the stage. So how am I wrong there? Let's have a look. How am I wrong there? Into needs to be stored into average score. Where's the average score though? Action 1. There it is. Look, you cheeky bloody monkey. That wasn't there. He's thrown that in there. God dang it. Okay, and a data stage, which was average score. I'm assuming that's a number. So now we'll do the calculation stage and dump that into average score. Got it. Again, I don't like that over there though. I always put data items. Data items to me should be together. Let's link it in and see what it does. Oh, okay, so he's linked it in.
Save and run the action.
Fair number of races division by 0. So let's make sure that we match that. Division by 0, so we do match that. That's fine. We're happy on that.
An error message window should appear to inform you that an exception has occurred. Now, build in some recovery logic to catch the exception. Add a recover stage and a resume stage. Then add a second end stage. Recover stages do not have an inbound link, as they are not part of the happy path, and only come into play when an exception occurs.
Okay.
Now, run the action again.
So recover 1, resume, recover, resume, and end. So we need a recover. So let's put a recover over here, a resume, and an end stage. And it said do that. But that's, see, what I don't like about that to me is certainly within what I use, that would class that as a success, I think, unless it captures the exception, I don't know.
To observe the results. This time, rather than failing at the calculation stage, the recover stage has attracted the exception like a magnet. Once caught, the process will flow between the recover and the resume stage. While this is happening, the exception is live and the process is in recovery mode.
Okay. So if that's the case, let's just go that. So, I mean, we've built what that says on the tin. So, added our first recovery mode. Done. Save changes. Let's leave it open because obviously we're going to be working in here again or further. Oh, this is a big old boy at 7 minutes.
If exception handling has not been built into a process solution, then any exceptions that are the result of the way a process is configured or of the performance of an application that is used by a process will be categorized as internal exceptions. When an internal exception is identified, an internal error message window will appear that provides detail of the exception, though the information contained here is not always presented in an intelligible way, making it difficult to identify the cause of the error. To mitigate this, exception stages can be included throughout your process solution, which provide the capability to embed more concise and meaningful information about an exception. This information is then thrown up through the process and once handled can be accessed via the session log. In this next activity, you will learn how to use an exception stage within an action diagram to throw an exception. You will then learn how to configure exception type and exception detail information within the exception properties.
Okay. Isn't that just a bunch of typing?
For this activity, you will be working in the racer score business object.
Yep.
First, add a decision stage to your action diagram. And create an expression to check whether the value in the number of races data item is greater than 0.
Number of races is equals greater than 0, so stand by then. It's a decision stage. So let's take this out of here. Bosh. Move this all down, add in a decision stage. Number of races is greater than 0. Let's validate that. The expression is valid, so I'm fine with that. Click OK. So if it's a yes, it calculates. If it's a no, I'm guessing we're going to go somewhere else, which is then going to cause the exception. Let's see what this recovery does here, though. Because in theory, if it's a no, it should just bob off over to there. We'll see what it's trying to. We'll see what it's trying to do.
Add an exception stage to provide a path for the no branch.
Yeah. Called it. Exception, there we go. No. Exception. So exception 1, number of races. Exception. The number of races is 0, and this has caused exception. So that is a, what would that be classed as? It's not a system. A system would be an application error. System exception, perhaps? And then if we were to lob that in there, That's how I would kind of try and do that. Right, let's see what it says to do.
Branch of the decision stage. Save and run the process. To watch the exception stage, throw the exception into recovery mode.
Okay, so let's make sure ours mimics that. Reset and run. That was quick. Or did I miss something? Damn. Reset. Okay.
Sometimes certain exceptions can be foreseen, and when this is the case, it is best to embed the exception stage with information that is specific to that exception, including the circumstances around the error, as doing so makes the job of rectifying the error much easier for the manual team. Give your exception a name and a description. The two most important features here are exception type and exception detail. Exception type offers a drop-down menu of common exception types, though it is also possible to create your own exception type
So invalid input
if more
parameter,
detail
perhaps?
is required. It is not an expression, so does not need to be wrapped in quotation marks.
Okay.
In this example, system exception is the logical exception type definition, as the error is the result of the way the process has been configured. Exception.
Did I get that right? Did I get system exception right? Nailed it. Ha! The number of races is 0 and it's caused the exception. There you go. So we were actually right. Bosh. Nice. So we weren't too far off on
Detail
kind of what we got.
enables the user to provide specific feedback on the circumstances of the exception, which will be visible in the session log, accessible from the work queue in control room. The exception detail value is an expression, so must be a data item or wrapped in quotation marks. Provide the feedback. It looks like the racer has not taken part in any races. Number of races is 0.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Sometimes
happy with
when
what
a
I've got
process
there.
identifies an exception, it will need to perform certain tasks before it retrieves the exception and throws it to terminate the process. For example, a process may need to securely log out of and close an application, or a process solution may contain a requirement to check for consecutive exceptions that may indicate a problem with the application it is interacting with. This functionality can be built into a process solution by building logic internal to recovery mode that can be used to store the exception detail within a data item. In this example, you will create this internal logic by setting up a calculation stage within recovery mode that can store the exception detail within a data item. Add another calculation stage between the recover and resume stages.
We're saying about the happy path here, and then you start building the exceptions path that can be just as complicated as the happy path.
Drag the exception detail function into the expression area. Type exception detail into the store result in field and press the icon to automatically generate a new data item of that name within your action diagram. Within a stage properties window, exception functions such as exception detail and exception type can only be used between the recover and resume stages, as this is when the exception is live and functions can be performed with it. Outside of recovery mode, the exception functions will not work, as no exceptions are live during the...
So what's he just done? Did he just create another data item? I think he did, didn't he? I'm going back. I'm not happy with that. Let's go back to...
setting up a calculation stage within recovery mode that can store the exception detail within a data item. Add another calculation stage between the recover and resume stages. Drag the exception detail function into the expression area.
So that was a calculation stage, so let's clear that, because we're not going to clear that. It's a calculation stage. Put it right. Exception. Capture. And then it's giving it exceptions, exception detail, and storing exception. What do you call it? What did he put it as though? Let's do that there a sec, because I know he stored something else, didn't he?
Type exception detail into the store result in field.
Exception, oh there you go, exception detail. So it's that into that, okay. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Press the icon to automatically...
Oh, press the icon. That we didn't do. That we definitely didn't do. There you go. Again, data items, I have to get down here. But I'm going to click that as like almost kind of, you have them separate. You know, you're saying that thing had blocks in it. You put them as blocks, like, you know, that's a data block, and that's like an exception block and stuff like that. That's kind of, let's see how it works.
Automatically generate a new data item of that name within your action diagram. Within a stage properties window, exception functions such as exception detail and exception type can only be used between the recover and resume stages, as this is when the exception is live and functions can be performed with it. Outside of recovery mode, the exception functions will not work, as no exceptions are live during the normal process flow.
Makes sense. Exceptions, man. Mind-blowing. Damn. Right, bubbling. Well, let's have a look at this one. Let's run this one back down to here. Let's just pause that briefly and do that, because I want to go back to Blue Prism. And can I? sure there used to be a way where you could just set stuff as a block. Oh well. So that is, that's fine there. That's fine there. An exception detail is, let me just put that over there. Actually, what we haven't done is kind of link these together to complete that path. So let's, I'm going to rerun that. So that should come down to here, that should capture that. So now we should be able to see exception detail, current value. There you go. Aha! So if we would delete out the current value there, look, and then rerun it, that's how you get the exception, look. God dang it. And the reason why is because I did the test on this earlier, the just like a mock test, and it asked how you get the exception detail. And I was like, oh, exception detail. It's there, look. Exception detail, open brackets, close brackets. That's how you get that bad boy. Gotcha. Well, let's reset that. Let's save. Added exception capture detail. Save and close. Worth knowing, because that was one of the test. That there was one of the test questions. How would you capture? What's the expression to capture the latest exception? So that right there is an answer to one of your test questions. God dang it. Okay, onwards and upwards. Cheeky beaky.
Now you'll take a closer look at exception bubbling.
Son of a biscuit.
Exceptions can occur at any point throughout a process solution. Wherever an exception occurs, it will always move up towards the main page of the process. On the highest layer of the process solution. To illustrate this, you will configure a process solution whereby the exception travels up from an action within a business object and through the calling process until it encounters a page that contains exception handling logic. In this next activity, you will create a process that uses the racer score business object.
Okay.
You will then experiment with the different ways that exceptions can bubble up through business objects and process pages.
Yay. Experimentation. Nice.
For this activity, you will be working in the Studio area of Blue Prism in both Process Studio and Object Studio. First, remove the recovery logic. Open the racer score business object and cut the recovery logic from the action diagram. Publish the action.
Okay. Right. So let's do what it says on the tin. We are cutting this. I don't like the fact that it's called Action 1, so I'm going to rename this to Race Score Calculation. There we go, and then publish it. Done. You can touch publish because it's got a little icon on it, and then I'm going to click save on that. Race score published. Exception cut for course. Save and close.
Then save and close the business object. Now you'll experiment by causing the exception to bubble up from the business object to the calling process. Create a new racer scores process.
Fine. Racer scores process. Bosh.
Add an action stage that uses the racer score business object.
See, it's called action 1 there. We've changed that. So, action stage. Business objects. Racer score calculation. There we go. Link, run, and run. So yeah, so this should in theory just fail. It's probably going to tell me to run it.
Save and run the process.
Yeah, this should just fail.
Here you can see exception bubbling in progress. The original error message window has appeared in the process page, as the exception has occurred in the business object and bubbled up to the process that is using it. Next, you'll experiment by allowing the exception to bubble up from the business object through the calling page and then up to the main page within the process, where it is eventually handled. Add another page to your process and paste the recovery logic into
so new page, recovery logic, paste, link and start and end, just because.
to the process diagram on the main page. Move only the action stage onto page 1.
What? Ah, you son of a biscuit. Wrong way. Wrong way around. So let's cut this back to main page and paste. Sweet. And then let's take this, cut, put it onto paste. Which makes sense because you wouldn't have a you wouldn't have exceptions on main page, I don't think. I don't think you would have this on here. Let's see what it says. Let's call this back to. I'm going to rename this now because it's not the recovery logic. Race run race score, because that's what it's doing at the minute, isn't it? Run race score business objects. That's what that's doing. Fine.
Then add a page reference stage. Save and run the process.
Page reference stage. Oh, for God's sake. Create a reference to an existing page, existing run race score. Hang on. Am I right there? Action page, yeah. Add a new page to create a reference. Create a reference. Yes. Oh, helps if I click it. My bad. I mean, that is pretty dire. Because it's using this to call this to get your error, I think. Yeah, so this will now run page 1, which goes to page 1, which will now get the error.
By doing this, you have deliberately chosen to allow the exception that occurred in the racer score business object to go unhandled up to the main page in the process.
Yep.
These experiments demonstrate that an exception will continue to bubble up from an action in a business object and then
Onto
through
page
the
1.
hierarchy of pages within the calling process
And then
until it reaches a page that contains recovery logic. At which point the exception will be handled.
you're going to leave your saving like that as well? No way. That's harsh. You don't want that. All right, let's see. Let's see what it says. Let's see if it fixes what it's trying to do there, because that's a terrible handling, I feel. Which is rightfully so. That's what it's designed as.
In most cases, each of the exception stages used within the main flow of a diagram will contain a unique pairing of exception type and exception detail information to make the source of the error easy to identify, whereas the exception stages used within recovery mode are usually configured for the sole purpose of catching and rethrowing of a diagram.
I need to listen to it again, because that's quite important. Let me just pause there, because my work phone is blatting away here in the corner. So I just want to make sure that everything's okay there. Interesting. Right, that's okay. Actually, I'm going to grab a can. One sec, let me go get some motion lotion. I'll get some Go Faster juice. And we'll leave Daisy on view, because, you know, she's excited for the course. There she is. Here we go. Righty, tighty then. Chair, Come on, baby, you got this. There we go.
most cases, each of the exception stages used within the main flow of a diagram will contain a unique pairing of exception type and exception detail information to make the source of the error easy to identify, whereas the exception stages used within recovery mode are usually configured for the sole purpose of catching and rethrowing the exceptions that bubble up to them. Exception stages within recovery mode should therefore be configured to preserve the information that is embedded within the exceptions that bubble up to them, to ensure that an accurate account of the error is retained for the session log.
Also a
This
question
can
on
be
your test.
achieved by checking the Preserve the Type and Detail of the Current Exception box in the exception stage properties. If this box is not checked, then on rethrowing the exception, a new exception will be generated, which will override the original exception that had bubbled up. In most cases, this will result in inaccurate information being captured and the original exception being missed altogether, making the source of the error very difficult to identify. The preserve box should not be checked for exception stages that are used within the main flow of a diagram, as doing so will generate an error. This is because exception stages outside of recovery mode are always new exceptions, meaning there would be no information to preserve.
Got it.
In this next activity, you will add a decision stage and a new exception stage inside recovery mode that will rethrow any exceptions that it can't handle up to the main page of the process. You will also learn how to use the Preserve Type and Detail checkbox
Good.
to retain the information of the exception generated by the business object as it bubbles up towards the main page of the process.
Okay.
For this activity, you will be working in the Racer Scores process in Process Studio.
So Racer Scores process in Process Studio. I think we're already in there anyway. So Process Studio, Racer Scores process. So we are already in there, so that's fine.
First, you will move the recovery logic onto page 1 of your process so that the exception bubbles up. Cut the recovery logic from the main page and paste it onto page 1. Next, add a decision.
Right, hang on then. So let's just mimic it. Let's just kind of do what it's doing, because that, I mean, that's pretty bad there. We know that anyway. So cut that, whack it over to here, paste that into there. So there's the recovery. Perfect.
Stage and a new exception stage inside recovery mode to rethrow the exception. Add a decision stage between the recover and calculation stages.
Down, I'm guessing. Yeah. Decision stage. Okay, so that's good. I'm not quite sure where this is going, but that's certainly decision stage. We'll just dump it in there for a minute because we don't know what that is.
Create an expression in the decision properties to check whether the recovered exception is due to a 0 in the number of races data item. There are numerous ways to do this. Here's one possible expression. Add an exception stage to your process diagram. and link it to the yes branch from the decision stage, with the no branch flowing down to the calculation stage. Create an expression in the decision properties to check whether the recovered exception is due to a 0 in the number of races data item. There are numerous ways to do this. Here's one possible expression.
In string exception detail, number of races is 0 greater. See, that's... Not necessarily a fan of that, because the course is aimed at people without coding knowledge. That's coding knowledge. In string exception detail. So, in string exception detail, which is this here. So there's a decision. Where's the in string? Because you should just be able to build it. Logic. Text. IN, or in string. Text search gets the starting point of a subsection of text, e.g. in string example MP result is the result in for the result was also matched in found. So in string, oh, you build it there. Let me just do that. So in string means it's searching. It's searching within the exception. It's searching for detail within that. It tells you there get string as starting point subsection of text. E.g. in string results is so exception is so in string is exception detail. So search within exception detail for paste in string exception detail, but there needs to be, I think it's race score. So how's he done it? Yeah, number of races is 0. Yeah, so what that's looking for there is, within the string exception detail, the number of races is 0 because that's the exception error. So if we go to our exception error, bosh, where is it? I think it's exception recovery. Is it exception recovery or... Oh, we can't because we don't have it. Yeah, we don't have it. Well, actually, if we get, so let's get rid of that decision stage very quickly. Let's get rid of that. Can we? Because the properties dialog is open. So yeah, let's get rid of that a sec. All right, let's put this back in. Sweet. Let's Go to the main page and run it. So what I should do is this should give us a recovery. There we go. There we go. Bosh. Sweet. So what we want to do now is go to see this here. See this? He's got the exception detail. That's what we want. So now if we go over to the decision stage, oh, it was calculation stage, wasn't it? If we go to the calculation stage, double click this, click on text in string, text expression, number of races is I'm just going to put 0 and then search in the exception detail. Let's see what that builds. Paste. Hang on then. Okay, let me just delete. What does that do? In string, the number of races is 0 is exception detail. What did he get?
Calculation stages.
Let's see what he got. Again, don't necessarily like that at all.
Create an expression in the decision properties to check whether the recovered exception is due to a 0 in the number of races data item. There are numerous ways to do this. Here's one possible expression. Add an exception stage to your process diagram.
In string exception detail, number of races is 0 greater than. So that's text, so the number of races is greater than 0. So let's have a look at what we have. In string, oh, so have we got that the wrong way around? I think we've got that the wrong way around. Text, search, validate. The following stage was, oh, where are we storing that? Or is that, do we have that the wrong way around? So do we need exception detail first? Is that the text expression? Ah, there you go. The text expression to be searched. So that's where you search and then copy that into there. Paste. Greater than 0. No, I was right. No, I was definitely right because that's where it's searching. No, I was right. I was right the first time. So let's do that. So we're already on the in-string text search there. The text expression to be searched. And I'm just going to put the number of races is 0. Text to search is number of races is 0. Paste. Greater than 0. The following error has occurred. The following error exists. Stage to store result does not exist. So that's fine because that just doesn't exist there. I'm going to put that anyway because that's fine. I just think it's looking for somewhere. In fact, what we can do, I don't know whether this will do it actually. Let's try that. So if we go to the calculation stage there and just click on any old bobbins. number of races equals 0. And if we do that, and then click now, if we click validate, there you go. So we built that ourselves. It's messy, but that's, you can see how you can see how we did that. But again, it's coding, and I don't like coding. But I like to do it myself, within reason.
Add an exception stage to your process diagram and link it to the yes branch from the decision stage with the
Well, that's a calculation stage, not a decision stage. I think it should be a decision stage then. Not a calculation stage. Hang on a minute. Is that supposed to be a decision stage? Oh, now we've got to do the in string again, haven't we? God dang it. No, in string text. Can we just paste that? Number of races is 0. Search in the exception detail, please. Paste. The result of an expression must be a flag greater than 0. Number of races equals 0. That's why you could do that. There you go. So if we just link that now, and then I need a exception. Link that to that, and I need to swap those around. Because if it's a no, it'll just go down to there. See, I think that exception detail needs to go there, you know. I think that's wrong.
no branch flowing down to the calculation stage. Now, open the exception properties window and check the preserve the type and detail of the current exception box. Notice that the exception type and detail fields become disabled when the preserve box is checked.
So let's go and do that. Let's go and do that. Exception is there and preserve. Boom. Preserve the exception detail. I just like that. I just don't like a decision. I like the fact that it says, you know, I like to be able to understand what that is if I go back and look at it at some point.
This is because the exception stage is now set up to only capture and rethrow the information from the exception that is bubbling up from the business object. It is therefore not necessary for the exception stage within recovery mode to capture any new information.
Okay. Blocks. Nice. Here we go. No. Oh, I'll turn it up for you boys. Let's do it.
A greater degree of control can be added to exception handling via the use of exception blocks, which are used to isolate the area of a process or action diagram that a recover stage is responsible for. Without a block, a recover stage will attract any exception that arises from any stage on that page. A block is a means of dividing a page into separate exception areas, each with its own recover stage and exception handling logic. Sitting a recover stage inside a block focuses its responsibility on the exceptions that are generated by the stages within the same block. Meaning all other exceptions are ignored. Blocks are beneficial as they enable the use of multiple recovery logic on the same page, which can each be configured differently to deal with exceptions in different ways. When using blocks to organize exception handling logic, it's important to ensure that only one recover stage is used within a block, that blocks do not overlap, and that blocks are not nested inside one another. In this next activity, you will learn basic best practice for the use of blocks by experimenting with a block to cover specific areas of an action diagram. For this activity, you will be working in the Action 1 page of the Racer Score business object.
Racer Score business object. What are we in? We're in the Racer Score process studio. So let's save that. Oh, actually, is that? Save that. Racer Score with exception handling. Let's close that. And then it was what within the Racer Score within business objects. There we go. And then this one here.
Add some new recovery logic to your action diagram. Select Block in the Stages toolbar.
So recover one, resume and end. So let's just do that. Recover one, resume and end. Please link and link. Sweet. There it is, block.
And initially, draw a block around the exception stage only. Run the action to see the exception caught by the recover stage as normal.
Right, let's test that. So we should be okay on that. We just draw a block around that, it says. Reset and go. There you go. Oh, well, that's not working as it's supposed to. Unless I'm missing something here. Oh, okay. How do I delete blocks? Well, whatever he did, don't work for me. So let's go and have a look, see what he's did.
Block in the stage's toolbar.
Yep.
And initially draw a block around the exception stage only.
Yep.
Run the action to see the exception caught by the recover stage as normal.
Okay. Yeah, that's what mine
When
did.
set
Yep.
up in this way, the block does not provide any benefits to the configuration, as the recover stage is still functioning as normal by catching all exceptions generated by all of the stages on the page. A block will only work if it contains a recover stage. Copy and paste the recovery logic to create a second recovery mode. Then, stretch the block to include the first recover stage. The first recover stage will now only handle exceptions generated by the stage sitting inside.
Okay, that makes more sense. So let's do a copy and paste of that. Bosh RPA days, and let's move all that down just so it mimics that. But let's just move that one out ever so slightly. Block that bad boy to there. That's what it's saying. And pinky point to that.
The same block. Run the action.
Run the action. Sweet. And run. Got it. Okay. Nice.
To see that the exception is handled by the first recover stage. If an exception were to arise from any of the stages outside of the block, then these would now be caught by the second recover stage. Resize the block so that it only covers the first recover stage. Run the action.
Because that's in a block of its own, so that is responsible for that. That has nothing responsible, so it passes out to that. So a block is only responsible for what is within the block, basically.
To see that the first recover stage has become redundant because there is no stage from the main flow inside the block.
Let's get your blocks right, people. Yeah, sure. Okay. Oh, okay, so that's, is that it? Are we done? Are we done with the exceptions? Damn! Okay. Ooh, cheeky. Those are just all the activity slides out of the course, and then that's obviously a self-test there. Exceptions completed. That was not bad, actually. That was not bad at all. Let's call that there. Exceptions are nice. Nailed it. Right, boys and girls, thank you guys so much for joining me on your Monday evening. It's truly greatly appreciated, as always. That was Blue Prism sections 7 and 8, exception management. overview and exception management. So I hope you found that useful. I certainly learned a few things from that, so that's really good and positive. So I will look forward to seeing you in the next one, which will be work queues. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, look after each other, and